I'm joined now by Jeremy Mayfield, who is a customer of ours and longtime fan. So, Jeremy, welcome. It's good to have you on.
It's nice to be here.
Can you tell us a little bit about your story and journey with SolarWinds?
Absolutely. So I've been with or using SolarWinds products since 2004. I was introduced to the engineering tool set way back when, and then became a big fan, and then was able to jump up to the Orion suites of tools. I had then received my first invite to join a young community that was growing way back in, I believe it was like the 2011, 2012 timeframe. I was invited to become a member of THWAC, and I was a THWAC MVP for nearly a decade, where I spent a lot of time attending, SWUG events and meeting different individuals working at SolarWinds. I've even been to the main SolarWinds office and attended a THWAC camp live in person. So I think I was the last class that got to attend live in person. So that was pretty great. I'm currently operating as the director of IT for National Sugar Marketing here in beautiful Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia. And we moved from a on-premise organization out to a fully cloud organization. And so in doing so, I needed a solution that could fit my need. And that's where I turned back to SolarWinds, having been a customer for many, many years. When I transitioned to this role, I looked and I needed an opportunity to leverage a service management platform. I knew SolarWinds had a great one. And that's how I ended up here talking to you today.
That's awesome to hear. And I think it's cool for a couple of reasons. One, obviously we're here to talk about the community in large. And I had actually just interacted with you before we are meeting now, as you had posted something on the THWAC forum post for SolarWinds Service Desk. And it was funny, I saw your picture on THWAC, and then I saw your picture in my email talking about our session. And so I was like, wow, what are the odds? So it's really cool just to think about how the community is just such a big part of things, right? Even just regular day-to-day operations for us. So, and then the other thing is, when you were talking about your story, you were talking about the portfolio and what you leverage from the infrastructure tools. And then now coming back, over a decade later, we're talking about the service desk, which historically hadn't been part of the SolarWinds portfolio. So I just think it's really neat there. And so I'm really excited to talk about the service desk and kind of how you're using it, since you're coming at things from a different angle than previously having been on the engineering side. So with that, tell me a little bit about your introduction to this role. And, I'm very glad we've got a loyal fan of SolarWinds, and you came to get to the service desk, but why the service desk, right? What made you say, okay, let's look at that tool as something we can implement?
Well, I think that the tool itself, one, it met our requirement for SaaS-based platform, right? That was the first checkbox. We needed something that was going to fit in our current infrastructure or tech stack, and it ticked the box. Second was its ability to handle the IT platform, right? So coming into this organization, I received information from the leadership, which is why I took the role, how they were excited to present a greenfield approach to IT, where they're saying, hey, come in, build it, we will use it, kind of thing. And so I knew we needed to leverage a good service platform. Even though we're a smaller company, what we do, where we're positioned in our space, we work with a lot of large organizations, and therefore need a really good service platform to ensure that we can do our jobs efficiently. Enter SolarWinds again. So another tick box, right? They have a very good platform that can help. But then there were a lot of other areas where we had some deficiencies. And I saw through the SWAC community, as well as research that I had done, how the product could be leveraged and how more and more people were leveraging these, traditional IT-based platforms for business-related items. And that's what really had me excited, because the SolarWinds platform tends to be a little more robust than what you might find with other tools that are out there on the open market, right? Whether you're talking open source or whether you're talking some very expensive tools. And you can definitely pay as much money as you want, and probably pay for the solution that might fit your business. But I find that SolarWinds, hands down, just simply covers the full gamut of what I need and what my organization needs. And so it was just the right fit, the right price, the right size. And that's what led me to overall selecting SolarWinds over some of the other competition in the open market.
So Jeremy, that's a great way to kind of segue into what other I wanted to talk about. And I mentioned this at the top of our session, that we bumped into each other on Thwack by complete chance. You had posted a question. And so reducing some of the complexity, you are still working out some of the kinks and how you want it to perform. Let's see if we can just dive into that and see what's going on here. But just to kind of surface for the folks listening, we're talking about a use case where it is, again, beyond IT, if I'm not mistaken. This is trying to take an element of the service management we've been talking about and put it towards customer facing, right? And so the question really kind of came around routing, because it is something that you can configure yourself, but maybe we don't know where the buttons are. So Jeremy, based off of the responses, have you made any headway? Do you still have questions about it? Is it working the way you want, or maybe we can kind of just chat it out?
Sure. So let me just first start by saying what that use case was. We're in a unique business here, as I kind of mentioned, in our position here as an organization, and we receive about 90% of our orders through email. We had roughly 65 to 70,000 orders processed last year, of which 10% of those were EDI. The rest were all emailed into our customer service department. We have a customer base that is pretty consistent. We distribute sugar. That's what we do. And, we have fantastic customers. During this email process, though, what we'd like to do is assign specific reps to specific customers so that they have consistency through their order process. They have those, I like to use the term that single throat to choke, right? When it goes back to, who's responsible, who's accountable. And therefore we need a process that allows us to manage that. Straight email just doesn't do it. We allow all of our customers to email into a single email address, and based on the domain, we need to route it to not only their primary, but a secondary, and then also the manager of the department. The reason for the secondary is in case somebody ever wants to take PTO. I know that's, amazing that people actually want to take time off, but sometimes they do, and we want to make sure they can. So, and then the manager is there to ensure nothing falls through the cracks, kind of an oversight. So we need almost like extra groups or extra assignments. And then we need that follow-up and all that those back and forth transactions with the customers, because just because we process 65, 70,000 orders, we may have 4 emails, 10 emails per one order email, depending on what that is. So we need all that data captured, all of it tracked, and plotted, so we understand, changes that are happening with the order, with the customer, et cetera. So it's very important. My issue was on that routing specifically, is the best way to go about getting a domain to route to who I want it to, when I want it to, how I want it to. And that's really where the question came from. Have I been able to move forward with it? The answer is no, not quite yet. So I'm mapping it out. There's been a couple of small changes that I may go through, and I was reading a little bit more about the ESM today, and looking at the different options there, and really trying to make sure that I'm doing it correctly, because what I don't want to do is have to go back and redo a bunch of work. However, I feel like with your help and the help of the THWAC community, I'll be very successful in getting things configured exactly the way I want it.
You're not the first person to have that exact use case and scenario, and you're also not the first person I've heard to say the single throat to choke. It is a good thing to have, right? You don't want to have 15 contacts to have to roll through to find your answer. So one of the first things I want to say is, yeah, absolutely, the product can do it. You mentioned another cool use case, and again, this is one of my favorite things about service management is use cases, about time off. A feature you may not have known exists in the service desk is you can set up out of office and delegates. So you could build in some automatic routings to include that as well, those people, or it could stay with the expected default assignee. And then should that default assignee go out, they have an out of office that they can enable there as well. But let's do a quick demonstration. Leveraging the automation rules would be your bread and butter for doing that. And yes, you can do it by domain. You can do some additional layers just for notification purposes to make sure the right folks are being notified, attaching CCs automatically so that the right people are copied, even if they want to say, okay, I'll sweep this into a junk folder until I know the employee's out, or, and the other big piece that you mentioned, and this is where I was saying that IT really put the true capstone on what is service management is that audit trail, right? Sometimes one engagement, I'll call it an engagement because that's more of a kind of global or universal term for it. But in this case, it's orders, right? But one engagement, I'll stick with that, may have several different back and forths that you need to manage. I'm now realizing engagement's not the best term because there's many engagements, but about the same issue topic. So having that audit trail, or even potentially somehow it slips out and goes into its own second thread, but it's still about the same thing, being able to merge them back together and then have the records linked so you can really see the history of what's going on with this specific order for this specific customer. And one more thing, you also mentioned ESM as our feature set. I think that could be something that's fantastic to look into. You'd be able to do a little bit more customer-facing branding, giving those folks that are responding to the customers their own dedicated space to eventually maybe even have a portal that those customers go to engage with, right? So taking it maybe somewhere to the next level. So giving them their own space there where you can still do the exact same types of configuration. What are your thoughts on that? Because you already mentioned it, so I'd imagine you're planning.
Yeah, so you're dead on, right? I would love to be able to get it to the point where we could offer a portal to our customers to be able to communicate that way. Maybe even go as far as, if it's available, having a one-on-one chat with the agent on the other side, their customer service rep. I would love to see that level of communication to bring that efficiency forward. I'd love to be able to provide that back to the customer and give them the ability, even, looking at the potential of integrating down the road with ERP and being able to push information through there as well. So there's a lot going through my head right now. And I do feel that, the SolarWinds platform has the capabilities to do all of these things. But as I said, I'm moving a little slower because I want to make sure I get it right. But to your point about the out of office, that's actually a very key element, because when we do close for holidays or people are out, we currently, have to send emails out that say, hey, we're out of office, and having that be automated is just one less thing, right? Every time we, whether it's IT helping, enabling, or whether it's a system like SolarWinds that's enabling, being able to knock off that one more thing that our end users or our organization doesn't have to do is a win. It's efficiency. It's money saved. It's time saved. And time is the one thing we all need more of. It can't get any more of it back once we use it. So I really feel like that's really where the biggest gains come from. So we're real excited to see where this goes in the future.
Man, spot on, Jeremy, for exactly what we're talking about today, decomplexifying, and love that it comes from our community, which is, again, my favorite place to engage with our customers. So what a unique way that we're having this session, and that we stumbled across each other moments before meeting for our session in a way. So thank you again for joining us in this SWAC session, Jeremy.
Thank you so much for having me, and I look forward to catching up with you on THWAC.